Hey, I'm Gavin.
And I'm Jonny, and this is Behind the Beach Bars podcast.
We're the founders of the Beach Bars, a group of local bars here on the Sunshine Coast built with purpose and passion.
In this podcast, we're going to take you behind the scenes and tell you about our journey, our people, our partnerships, and how we run and operate this business.
It's for locals, for team, or for anyone who's curious into what goes on behind the scenes of building a business you believe in. Jonny, why the hell are we doing this? Why are we here shooting a podcast for a beach bar on the Sunshine Coast?
I think we just really have a story worth telling. And from our family and our staff perspective, our customers, a lot of people sort of ask us the same questions.
Being here in a format like this, it gives us the ability to actually tell a lot more of a story than what we can put as a simple snippet on Instagram or social media, you know.
Yeah, totally. I think Instagram, Facebook, like all the socials show you the pretty version of hospitality, but it's a lot dirtier and nastier and funnier and messy, beautiful than that. So yeah, I think this is a great way to get that across.
Okay, so today, with being the first episode, we just want to start right back in the beginning, which is, where did this even come from? Perhaps we should start with very, very beginning. How do we know each other?
Yeah. So we went to school together, me and Gav, out at Burnside High. Gav was a few years above us, but Burnside was a pretty cool school back in the day in terms of how all the years, it didn't matter what year you're in, everyone sort of communicated and linked up with everyone at parties. It was, I remember going into year 8 and I already knew like most of the year 12s from the swimming group. It was a really good community in that sense.
Yeah, I think it was the activities in particular for me, what stuck to us across the year groups was the surfing crowd. It was like everybody who surfed was surfing down at Pincushion at Maroochydore, catching the bus down or getting rides with parents down, and we kind of knew all the surfing kids across the multiple grades at school, and that was like one of those original things that kind of put us in touch with each other, even though we were in different grades and got to know each other well. Yeah. So we knew each other from school. That was how that relationship kind of started, in terms of just being mates across the grades. And then when I think we first started talking about the potential of a business was actually many years before it ever happened, which was when we were both living in the UK. So I was living in London, you were living in Bristol.
That would have been like 2009 maybe, 2010, around there.
Yeah, and I remember the big weekends of when Jonny was coming into London and we would...
I lived in Bristol at the time. I was in Bristol for 7 or 8 years in my 20s, and so I used to come in and have weekends in London with Gav and Woody and run amok.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing for me when we were looking back on it was we could remember that early conversation that we had one time in London where we were like, you were obviously in hospitality, I was an accountant in London, but we definitely had a shared love of the Sunshine Coast and things we missed from home. And we talked about how great it would be to actually set up a hospitality venue in London that represented the Sunshine Coast. We had those chats about like how nice it would be to create a beachside bar or cafe or whatever in the city which was all about coast lifestyle, like surf pictures on the wall or surf videos or smashed avocado on toast, all the things that kind of synonymous with a beach cafe here. And that obviously didn't happen in London.
There was a full pipe dream of like, we were going to set up a prep kitchen and then have all these little places popping up at every tube line in London. Like a lot of thought went into it, but it was definitely a big dream.
But we did also, it was kind of the first taste of us talking about potentially doing something together as business owners at some day in the future, like obviously you already had cafes and restaurants you were involved in over there. I was busy pursuing a finance career in the city, but it already got us talking about what life could be like working together. Which then obviously, 10 years plus later, it actually became a reality when we first started here on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth mentioning that 10-year journey as well, from there until getting home, because we actually came back to the coast at similar times.
Yeah.
I was probably a year or two before you.
I was 16 when I moved back.
I was 14, I think. 14 or 15.
Yeah.
But I finished school and I went straight in. I was at Sunshine Coast University doing sport and exercise science, but I had no passion in it. I wasn't invested. I had no buy-in. I just did it because I loved sport. But there was never going to be a job for me coming out of university. There was nothing that drew me to an actual career. But I was working at a couple of cafes at Mooloolaba, and I think because I love sport so much, that's what drew me to the that team mentality in hospo. It wasn't so much my love of cooking, because I didn't really have a love of cooking back then. It was more that team environment of just working hard and working together to get the job done. I think that's what drew me into hospo. And then I ended up, fast forward a few years, did my apprenticeship in Bristol, and then ended up, once I got qualified, I opened up 2 cafes on my own over there. And that kind of taught me exactly what not to do in business, I think. But I wouldn't be where I am now without that journey. So I sort of look back at those few years over there with a smile on my face. But at the time, it probably wasn't something worth smiling about.
Yeah, there's definitely things from it which carry forward to who you are now. So it was only at the leadership session we had with our team a month ago where you were talking about a story of a chef who influenced you in those days and how that's carried forward, and you want to try and pass that on to the chefs we have in the business today. So maybe not the business success you wanted, but the life learnings you needed at the time, which helped set you up for this, latest version of where you're at. Yeah. So my journey across that point in time was, I was obviously not a chef or hospitality, so I was an accountant. Studied at the university here on the Sunshine Coast, did my accounting degree, got qualified here, then moved to the UK to what I thought was going to be a 6-month working holiday, turned into a 10-year international finance journey, which kind of worked me through the way up to being basically CFO of big multinational businesses. But for me, coming back to the Sunshine Coast, he was home and moved back here once I started having children along the way, and coming back to wanting to be here on the coast around family and friends became more of a priority than career at some point in time, and moved home here in 2016. There's no international CFO jobs here on the Sunshine Coast, so at that point in time I wanted to go down a different pathway, which was getting involved in businesses for myself. And that's where I started a couple of businesses, but it was within 6 months of being home that we'd hooked up and started going into our first venture together. At that point in time. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend
and follow us on socials.